Hello, Miss Michelle Gray at thehealing-art.com. Remember, used to struggle with that.
And now you do it so perfectly.
Oh,
Hello,
yeah, well,
Lisa.
for
How are
now.
you?
So, hello, Eric, my love. I love you.
Uh, Eric's holding on to his heart. I love you, Mama. I love you so much. He's really glad that you're taking care of yourself right
Yeah,
now.
I'm going to go to bed right after this. I got hit by a long COVID tsunami of fatigue right now.
Hmm.
Anyway, we will soldier on and we'll do part one of ancient civilizations. And we've got so many. I mean, it's like over 60 questions from the community. So we'll see if it's going to be two parts or three parts. Now, the first series of questions has to do with this south of Hawaii, at the bottom of the seabed. There's what looks to be an ancient scattered civilization. And maybe we could find a picture under Google. Is that true, Eric?
Oh, yes. Eric says actually there's some not just in the south of Hawaii. He says there's some other areas because he's like showing me a map, mapping out some different areas. Yes, there's remnants of ancient civilization there. Um, and there's also so they must have discovered some pieces of this because he's showing me like a camera going down under the water and like they've got pictures. So they've
Okay,
already got some sort of evidence or somebody's already studying this.
interesting. Do you know the name of this civilization, Eric?
He's saying that this is connected to the Atlantean
Oh, it was
civilization.
part of the Atlantean civilization. How long did this civilization flourish, and when? How old is it?
He's talking about this being one of the first civilizations. Now he's showing me like there's other areas. So we've got Asia,
Okay.
um, Israel. He's like showing me different areas where there was already something occurring there. But in this particular one, so this would be like 4,000 BC or BCE.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
even know
Okay.
what those mean. But like this is early, he says, and
Okay.
this is also he's saying in conjunction, this civilization is in conjunction with ETs.
Oh.
So they weren't all human.
Oh, were there human hybrids also?
Yes.
Were there any regular, just pure humans?
Um, yes, over time there
Okay.
were. Um, but he says this was seeded, like seeded from ETs.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Interesting. So, how long did the civilization survive? Thousands of years, hundreds of years?
He says thousands.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, it looks like there's evidence that this civilization was destroyed by tectonic movement, lava uprising, and water. Is that true?
Yes.
Oh my God,
Yes.
terrible. Was it a sudden event that caused a lot of terror amongst the inhabitants?
Yes.
Did
He says that there was a
oh,
major loss of life.
oh,
But this is also, he calls this the end of a karmic cycle.
oh, yeah.
So he says this was the way that the earth and the karmic cycle was cleansing that civilization to then spread out to new locations. He's like a new era being born. And he also says that some of these ideas, like a lot of civilizations we've seen end in destruction. And he says this is also why there's been a lot of fear embedded in predictions of the future of there being disaster,
Yeah.
because there was at time disaster is what was needed to cleanse. And
Yeah,
so
they
he
say that
says
it's like 12.5 thousand or 25,000 every cycle. There's a huge cataclysm, apparently, or there
and
has been.
he says it's because as earth changes vibration, because what's been happening, he says, throughout all of the civilizations, and as population on Earth has grown, the vibration consistently changes. And so he says, if we are looking at the core of the Earth, the plates, the oceans, he says everything shifts. And so nothing can stay the same. He says, think about all the layers. And he's showing me how,
Yeah.
when movement's happening over here, it's going to reverb over
Oh,
here.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's how these things take place. But he says it's all part of the cycle. And it's interesting because he says cycle, and then he shows me the Earth being round, like everything is
Oh,
a cycle.
yeah, interesting. So, did anybody survive?
Yes.
Or how? Go underground
Some
or
were able to go to higher ground,
okay,
because he says it wasn't all like lava and water took everything. He
okay.
says there was also a very deep connection into telepathic ability,
Mhm.
um, like a connection into, he's saying, they were looked at more as like parents. They were connected to the parents. That's
Oh,
the feeling of it. Like, not saying God, it's like our parents.
like
And so
ET
they're good.
parents of the alien
Hmm.
hybrid, something like that.
Hmm. Like we're connected into our parents. And so there was some warning of this coming. So some were prepared and were able to move location, get to higher ground. And he says, we may not be thinking in terms of this is Earth, and we're thinking, well, did they have boats, and how did they build boats, and how did they do this, and how did they do that? But Erik says, you have to remember that this is a time that is not well documented in our history books,
Right.
but let's think about things. Let's expand our mind a little bit and think about the things that could possibly be taking place, that is traveling in the air or is able
Oh,
to travel. He's saying like by location, by locating. He goes, there's a lot of things that were taking place that our mind in our linear term wouldn't yet understand.
so it's like they can beam me up, Scotty, kind of thing. Or
Some could. He said, as the civilization grew and changed, um the ability, so as the vibration changed, there was a density that was occurring. So as each, he's going to say, um human hybrid, as each would change, they would be more of a dense vibration, so they wouldn't
oh,
have the exact same type of connection that, say, some of the earlier ones did.
I got you. Now there are smooth sections of the seabed that may be examples of quickly cooled lava. They say, is that true?
Yes, that is true.
Okay, if this is true, it is. How many hours was the civilization subjected to earthquakes and lava flow until the water submerged the land?
He says it's not all in the exact same area, so there must be, because he says it wasn't all exactly the same.
Okay.
But he's saying, like, if we're gonna put it into hours, it was actually very short. So he's saying within a couple of hours.
Oh my God. That is horrific. So is the ones that they reached higher ground to or is that part of the actual Hawaiian Islands?
Yes.
Okay. Could that happen again there?
Um. No. Erik says that the structure is very different now. Is the best
Okay.
way to say it.
All right.
So he says occurring quite in that way again would be like saying, um, and he says some may disagree, but he says it would be like saying, like the time of the dinosaurs again. So
Okay.
it's a change, it's a cycle. So could something like that happen? Yes, but not to that severity, not
Oh,
there.
good. Okay. Is there a spiritual reason why this advanced civilization was not allowed to continue?
He says yes, because they had a karmic cycle.
The karmic cycle. Okay.
It's that time on Earth was completed to move on to the next. Um, like he says, when we say like the Iron Age to this age, it was the next cycle, and he's showing me like the astrology, the stars, the planets.
Okay. Now, these next involve something called the Codex, and I was looking it up, an ancient manuscript text in book form. There's actually in Birmingham in the UK, a Codex Sinaiticus project where they're studying this, I guess. The Codex transformed the shape of the book itself and offered a form that has lasted ever since. Anyway, I don't have time to read that, but is the Codex correct that this civilization was shaken by earthquakes in the morning while people were at work? So they must have found some sort of book or manuscript. What is the Codex? Was it written by these people and then found at higher ground? And what?
He's saying it's like a okay, so you know when we have people that are studying the weather patterns and studying like recording data when it comes to our current like earthquakes and things like that. He's showing me a paper, and he's giving it to me like in a modern way of saying it, like this was
Okay.
point this on the Richter scale. So he's saying that there was documentation of events that would take place, but it was part of patternizing what was
Okay.
taking place. And so he says yes, this is accurate, but he does say that this is a like there's an original one, so this is not
Oh,
the original that they're studying. There is something that is an original, so it's like this is a copy, but it's still old.
okay. Well, where's the original? Did it get destroyed?
Yes.
Oh. Is the Codex correct that, well, this must have been made by some survivors, I guess. 46 million people drowned?
He says there and about, yes.
Okay. As the Codex suggests, were there 10 counties? Wow, this is really advanced.
He says, and that's limited. So the idea of counties, like not in the way that we would see counties, like a limited group. Limited
Okay.
groups is how he's saying it.
Almost like tribes,
Mm-hmm.
communities, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. How were they governed?
He says at that time it was based on class, like what you did, um, like the value of the work that you put into the community. So, like farming,
Okay.
food, there was already development of, he says, like just think of it as royalty, like
Okay.
ones that were considered more educated.
Okay.
He says so. It's all kind of the same ideas of the things we have now, but think of it as much smaller, much
Okay.
smaller. Mhm.
Was it a
No
dictatorship?
policing or anything like that.
There's no policing?
Not really. He says that it was more like there were things that, like, if someone were to steal food, there would be repercussion for that sort of thing, but it wasn't, there weren't particularly laws like we would have
Okay.
them now. There wasn't the need for that in the same way at that time.
Well, was there a dictator, like one ruler?
He says a group.
Okay, great. What was the average lifespan of these people, Eric?
Well, he says, are we talking about this civilization that they documented? Because this is
Yeah.
different than what, okay.
Yeah.
So in this civilization, he says that there are some that were able to live to older age, like to
Right.
100, 120 years old. Um, he says it's actually not that far from what our age spans are right now, but there wasn't as much disease.
Oh, interesting.
So death was more by
Accident.
I guess accident, sometimes murder.
Okay.
He says that it was more of those type of things, but he says when it came to health, there were some issues that would take place, but there weren't
Really?
the cancers and things like that that
They
they
didn't have
dealt with.
cancer?
He says that there were
Oh,
sometimes there were, he's calling them obstructions. So they could have, he's showing me like problems in the bowels, like
okay.
obstructions, but he says that usually it was coming from something that may have been either deformed at birth
Oh, okay.
or something that wasn't caught early, but he's saying like there was no chemical.
Oh,
There's no
okay.
chemical, there was no need for that at that time.
Oh. Okay. Could they travel to the stars and did they? I guess the ETs and maybe the alien hybrids, but I don't know.
Yes. Um this particular civilization had telepathic communication. There was a lot of communication with the stars and with astronomy,
Mhm.
with the movement of the stars. There was like a universal connection, and he's saying that this civilization was more of a God connection. There
Oh,
was this idea of there being an ultimate being.
mm. Source, I guess. Okay. Did they prepare for their civilization's demise by sealing their libraries to be buried on the seabed or under the depths of the ocean?
The ones that had time, and so he's showing me that there were ones that were like the data recorders,
Okay.
like ones that would have a duty in the community to keep track of information. And so that some of that information was through picture.
Mhm.
Some of that information was through he's saying language, so it would be like an old language.
Mhm.
Um, if they had time, and he also says that they would sometimes make multiple copies
Okay.
of the information. So they would bury um, multiple copies of the same thing. But he's also saying that some things were rewritten by memory. So not all copies would be exactly the same.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So, other than telepathy from the parents, how did some of them know that there was a demise around the corner? Did they have
Um,
scale recording, whatever? I mean,
okay, so he's showing me like what looks like sticks, like bamboo. It's like lining up all of these sticks with the
mm,
weather, and they're rolling, they're marking these sticks, and they're able to tell like temperature and weather with these
wow.
long bamboo sticks. It looks like bamboo. So Erik said that they had some ways to be able to measure temperature, and like with their recordings to kind of gauge what was coming. So they didn't always know like the weather was going to change or something was going to happen. They also had um like connection to nature, like
Mm,
connection to changes of the animals.
oh,
And often the animals were very sacred in the fact that they were able to communicate with them when there was something coming, because
wow.
the animals' behavior and uh, insects, like different
Mm,
pieces of nature that were existing, would give them the information that something was coming. And
wow.
by
That's
building these
cool.
pieces together over time, they were able to predict in that way as well.
Very cool. Is their language close to Polynesian?
Yeah, Erik says, yes, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, is there any way to access their libraries? How many libraries are on the seabed that are not destroyed?
He said that what is there that and he's saying that it potentially could be uncovered
Hmm.
over the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh,
But he says it's not in very good shape.
oh, yeah.
So the information gathered from it is not really going to be, it's, he says, like piecing it together, showing me like chunks, piecing
Oh,
things together. So very, very brittle and not preserved.
oh gosh. Do all the libraries contain the same information, like you were alluding to their copies, Eric?
Um,
Or they're different?
he says within, kind of, he says some of them are a little bit different because he says some of the documentation would be about other things. So there is some variation to it.
Okay. Okay. How many people survived and escaped the earth? Yeah, how many? We didn't talk about that.
But he's saying in the hundreds.
No, that's not much. Did they start all over again, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did the civilization make its buildings out of glass, or at least some of them?
Did they make their was their civilization with glass or their new one?
Oh, I don't know, either one.
Um Erik says that the old civilization, he says not glass as we would know it right now. He's calling it like a very polished stone,
Oh,
like
okay.
almost like a crystal, very polished,
Oh,
that it has that um idea of glass. But he said not like the glass that we see today.
yeah, I think that'd be fragile. So where do they get the material? The crystal, was it crystal stone, whatever?
He says the ETs, a lot of
Oh,
it was coming from the ETs.
okay.
He says that was their best importer at
Yeah,
that time.
yeah.
They also taught them how to transform material
Mm,
on Earth, like how to um, transmute. And he's showing me sand,
yeah.
how to transmute sand to build crystal or to make crystal.
Okay. Why did the ETs care about that civilization?
Well, Erik says, there's a lot of different reasons to that. For one, that they are them. Um, there's a connection. He says there's a DNA connection, but a lot of these civilizations, he says, are they're from other planets, or some of the starts of Earth came from planets that were destroyed
Oh,
in our planetary system. And so Earth was our, like, there was a long time Earth didn't have anybody on it, but he's
yeah.
talking about other planets that were like Earth.
Okay.
And so he says the humans, the human structure, the human being already existed on another planet.
Oh.
So there was already another form of us that
Mhm.
existed, but that planet became sour. It was Erik says the best way to say it is it was overtaken. There was a lot of disarray in
Oh.
the cosmos for a long period of time.
Mm.
And so the movement onto Earth was intentional to
Okay.
preserve their own relatives, their own family.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, one of the buildings can still be seen. It's on its side. It looks like it was constructed to have a bubble-like appearance on each floor. Is this structure made of glass, or is it the polished stone you talk about?
He says that this is that polished stone. Um, and he says you can see through it. He talks about this being for the purpose of healing.
Oh,
He's showing me at certain times bringing in the sun's rays or the moon rays, stars, and I can see So we've got, it's actually got more than one side to it. So it looks like it goes all the way around in a circle.
Okay.
And I can see beams that are coming in from either side. And so they've got,
Healing chamber, sort of. Yeah.
it's exactly what it is. And Erik says, that's right, Mom. He goes, that's what they used it for.
Wow.
He says those healing chambers were used for bringing in energy, for healing people. But he also says that it was to work on our ability, because he shows people coming together and it's like they're in prayer, like
Yeah.
pulling in energy. So there was a lot of, say, like a high vibration in this particular space.
Wow. That's cool. Why was the structure made with protruding circular walls? Is it to concentrate the beams and for the healing?
He says it had to do with vibration.
Oh, change the vibration of the beams coming in,
Mhm.
or of the person, or both.
Um, the way he says is it's the movement of the light, so to
Oh,
do with
okay.
the light.
Okay, that makes sense. Did the structure survive because it fell over during the earthquakes and the water filled the building so that it did not implode when it sank to the seabed?
Yeah, he says, yes, he's talking about the water, like the water protecting it, basically.
Okay.
Because there's a great part of it that is demolished. So what's being exposed is like literally a corner of it.
Okay. I'm gonna just do one more question, and I just got to slink off to bed. I'm so fatigued. There is a funnel-like building that looks like a vase. It is on the top of a high part. Is this a spiritual structure, or what was it used for?
So interesting is Erik said that a lot of these buildings, and he says, think about the pyramids. Think
Yeah.
about the pyramids and how the pyramids had this purpose of, he's saying, uh, bringing in light, connecting with ETs. And he says it's like mapping the stars, but it had information coming back and forth. And he says that this was like a chamber of information. So there was telepathic communication. He goes, this was their telephone. This was like a
That
way
is
to be able to enhance. So
wow.
was
That's
there
so cool.
spiritual? There was spiritual there. He says there was prayer, there was communication, there was meditation,
Okay.
but it was a very strong center to speak. And he says
Wow.
voices coming through from other dimensions, other locations.
Oh, that is so cool.
That's
All
really
right, well, that's
interesting.
all I got. I'm running out of gas. So
Yes,
thank you,
go
Michelle
rest.
Gray. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Erik. Remember the healing-art.com. And you guys be sure to share this and hit the notification bell so you won't miss part 2. And it looks like there's going to be part 3 too. Love you all.
Love you. Erik says bye, Mom. I love you.
Love you.